All right, let's go. All right. I like doing that. All right. Tim, I watched Ottawa and the Leafs last night, and again the Leafs got outshot and they won.
Right, they got outshot again when they beat the Hurricanes. So if you're Sheldon Keefe, are you a little worried about that going into the playoffs?
I don't know. I don't know how I feel, but.
Well, when we were watching that game, Cindy, we were watching the Carolina game, and Carolina had a lot of shots that you called horse crap shots, right?
Yeah,
so which is what?
When you see the goaltender go down and like that and catch it in his breadbasket, I used to call it the breadbasket, and that is a nothing shot. That's just shooting on the net. That's
like you were saying, any shot that's like 3 feet off the ice.
I used to practice with the Bruins for a half hour, and I knew that, and I used to pass the puck to them. And if they shot it any higher than 6 inches, I didn't mind them 6 inches. Ankle busters, as I call them, and either high or low. Second shot high, always the second shot high. I see the guys get it in the breadbasket. They count it as a shot. It's nothing.
Didn't Hap Ems teach you that?
Hap Ems, I remember Hap Ems. If I go back to junior days, if I had a shot the puck high and you get up to about 18, I don't know why.
Tell what happened was that you shot the puck high in a game, and he made you shoot how many pucks in a row?
18 in a row, and if they were over 6 inches high, I had to start over again, and I get up around 16 or 17. I'd get nervous, up and high again. Oh, gee, here I am. And you never let on you're mad or anything like that. So I start all over again. And then I get up around 16 or 17 and up, go the shot again. You get tired of it. Just shoot pucks and try to keep them low. And good ones. You had to be good. You just couldn't have.
You had to be zingers, right?
You got to be zingers on the net. And he said, boy, he was a tough coach. I went from him to Eddie Shore. I never ducked anything.
And that's what made you a good coach, being around those two guys.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, tell them what not to do.
What not to do if
what
you're a
not
coach.
to do.
Yes.
And when I got to the Bruins, let's see now. When I got to the Bruins, I'm the only coach that never insisted on weights, lifting weight. And then I never weighed them, but I could look at them, see if they were putting on.
You never gave them a curfew.
And I never get.
You never suspended?
Well, night before a game, I did.
Okay, did you ever suspend a player?
No, never suspended a player. I get rid of them.
Ever fine a player?
Well,
I never fined them either.
There was 2 guys in Rochester that were your leading scorers.
No, I remember that. You would tell them it wasn't a curfew break. You told them you didn't want them to go to a certain bar called Golden Banana. In Rochester. That was called the Golden Banana in Rochester.
I don't know. I did. I told the 2 guys, and I forgot their names now.
I know.
Herman Karp.
Yep.
Herman Karp. And anyhow, it doesn't matter. I told them not to go into a bar, and they were our leading scorer. And
you sent someone out to check the bar, if I remember correctly,
to
see if they were there. And sure enough, they were there.
And then they were gone.
Yeah, you grabbed your skates and threw them out the door.
Then you were going into the playoffs, and you were going into the playoffs, and you send down your 2 top scorers. How did that go over with the owners?
No, they didn't know. Well, Joe Fox,
How could they not know 2 of their top scorers went down?
Well, they knew that. I'll never forget the one guy when I coached Rochester, Gary Butler and Jake Rathwell. They came to me. No, Rod Graham came to me and said, they want some more money. They want more money. They do. And he says, now take it easy. Take it easy. I remember Rod he would have been a good coach. And Rod said, take it easy. I'm just telling you this here. But
they wanted a bigger split of the playoff?
Yeah, they want. And I took their skates to them. I said, get out of here. And both of you, get out of here. Jake Rathwell and Gary Butler. I never forgot them.
Both those guys made the NHL, though, didn't they?
No, I don't know. Gary Butler didn't.
Jake Rathwell did, didn't he?
Jake did.
So, Dad, we were watching the Ottawa game. And, Jake and those guys were Jake Rathwell and Gary Butler and Herman Carpenter, the other guys. They got you mad and you kind of got rid of them. But you said you could notice if guys are ticked off, and you think Kerfoot with the Leafs.
There's no doubt that he's ticked off. Well, the reason he hasn't gotten a goal in 23 games is because he hasn't been playing. Before he was playing, he was
on the first line for some time.
For a long time, he was on the first line, and he was doing pretty good. Must be nice to have teams like that.
Well, when you said you noticed, because this is Sunday morning, on Saturday night he scored
I watched him. He was on one leg, and he just turned on like that, and the first guy over to him was Marner.
Yeah.
And I watched.
He wasn't jumping around.
He wasn't jumping around. Usually when you score the goal.
Especially late. They went 9 shooters.
Yeah, and I knew he was going to. I said, that little bugger will score. And he did. And he went on one leg, and the first guy to beat him was Marner. Because he knows, and everybody knows he's ticked off. It's not an easy job coaching.
So, Dad, what'd you think of the goalies Bennington and Fleury fighting?
Well, I
almost fighting.
Almost
fighting. Yeah,
there has been more stuff played on television about them almost fighting than if they did fight, and the crowd's going crazy, just absolutely bananas. Everybody wants to see the fight. No, the linesmen break it up.
No.
So all the guy, everybody that spent big dough to go to St. Louis to watch the game, who's paid the freight.
Yeah.
It's not the reporters. It's the guys. They booed, and Fleury was mic'd up. But I tried to get the audio, but you couldn't hear it. And he's going, no, let us go, and all that. And then Fleury said, I think the fans would have liked that.
I know they would have liked it. I mean, the fans that pay the freight. So let's go. Let's talk about the way it works now is the fans that pay the freight want to see the fight, but they cancel the fight. They wouldn't let them fight.
Yeah.
Even if they usually. The first fight I ever saw,
like when you were playing, you've had a few brawls when you guys played Bledge Cummer brawls, a few. Did the goalies fight?
I never saw the fight till Gilbert and Bouchard fought, and in
Atlanta, I remember that. That was a big brawl.
That was a beauty. I didn't think Bouchard could throw that good.
Well, but Gilbert,
Gilbert thought it was me. But Gilbert, they were really going at it.
But do I remember that because we were watching it? It was at TV 38. Was Gilbert and Bouchard both had long hair, right?
Yeah,
and their hair was just flying.
It was beautiful to watch.
And they were really throwing them. And even when usually goalies throw a couple of punches and hold on, but they weren't. They were really going
What's the best fight you've seen in Detroit?
What, the goalie fight?
Yeah.
Well, Hextall and Potvin's the best goalie fight.
I didn't think Potvin could throw him that good. He was getting underneath there pretty good. Hextall was throwing him pretty good too.
Yeah.
Well, he has a good gene pool,
I would say that was the best. Yeah. Hextall's. You don't fool around the Hextalls.
Well, the funny thing too was Fleury was mic'd up, right? And so they were, his hair is always well coiffed when he's not playing. And so, they break it up, and he's going to get, and the linesman has a hold of him, and he goes, no. He goes, you got to go back to the goal. And Fleury goes, no, I want to get my mask. He says, I don't like my hair like this.
Yeah, he does look pretty good.
Yeah.
Tell us the story about Quebec wanting to ban fighting.
The Quebec Major Juniors, they looks like next year they're going to ban fighting. So they don't know what it's going to be. They don't know if it's a game misconduct or a game misconduct.
You were saying, I hate to interrupt you, Tim, but you were saying...
And what happened was during COVID, the Quebec League went and said, a couple of our junior teams might go under if we don't get some help. So the provincial government in Quebec says, we'll help you, give you money, but they're blackmailing them, saying now that you got to take out fighting. And one of the guys who used to fight, and his name is Enrico Caccioni, in the National
the only thing
Hockey
that
League.
Kept them in the league.
Yeah, he said, well, I don't want the kids to go through what I went through. You'll say, well, go through that you're in the National Hockey League and you shouldn't be, but you're just because you fight, you make a lot of money in the NHL, you end up in the Quebec government. And
with a good pension.
With a good pension. So what, you don't want that.
That's a tough life.
So that's what they're saying anyway. So they were. It's not. It wasn't the league that was doing it. They're getting kind of blackmailed by the Quebec government. But the WHL just said nope.
I love the WHL. Nope, that's it.
Nope. We're happy with their fight.
Well,
And the OHL.
Yeah.
Well, we'll take a look at it and see how it goes, and we'll do this, we'll do that. But the WHL, nope, that's it. Nope, we're not taking it out.
Yeah.
But the instigator rule's bad enough.
Yeah. Well, my thing is, so let's say it's a game. It's a game and a suspension. Like you get thrown out of the game and you get suspended one game. So it's kind of fresh in your mind, right? So why don't you if you're in a playoff game, why wouldn't you just go grab their best scorer, drop their gloves, and if he throws a punch, he's out of the game and he's suspended for the next game.
And very few guys won't throw a punch back if somebody throws a punch at them.
So, Sydney and Dad, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Spreads.ca. They're a Canadian-owned online sportsbook and casino. And if you sign up now and use the promo GRAPES, they match your deposit up to $500. You get 10 spins on the big wheel for some big dough. And your first sports bet, they'll spot you $25.
Not too bad.
Which is pretty good. So, Dad, poor Calgary last night, lost in overtime again. They've lost 20 games by 1 goal.
21 games now.
And they've lost 21 games where they have outshot their opponents by 10 or more shots. Not just outshoot their opponents, by 10 or more shots.
Yeah.
But
they never get a break, though.
They got, like that last night, they hit 2 goalposts. And Markstrom goes to clear the puck. It hits the referee, puck bounces right to a Flame or a Dallas Star guy. They put it in. Like if you're like Sutter, what do you say? The team?
I don't know. He doesn't seem to be too upset. To me personally, I think that the Calgary Flames are a team that when you dump it in and the wingers are going, must have been terrible playing against our team, because if the left winger was going up the left side, you knew it was going in the right hand corner, and that guy wouldn't even look.
But we talked about this, Dad, today. Teams don't dump it in properly. Like, they don't dump it in. They dump it in to get a change.
Yeah, and what they do is they dump it in to get the change, and the guy stands behind the net waiting for the changes.
That's boring hockey.
Oh,
yeah. Like, I gotta admit, like
that's pretty boring.
Like, boy, that Carolina Leaf game. That was pretty. I don't care what you say. That was a boring hockey game. Like, like you root for the Leafs and they have the St. Patrick's stuff, but holy smokes! Like if you're trying
that was a nice uniform, though.
Yeah, I liked the St.
It looked pretty good.
Wonder if they're giving it away to charity, signing them.
I don't know about that one, but they looked pretty good on them, and they won. It was a lousy game, but they won. And
well, watching your Bruins, Dad, there was nothing more exciting than watching your Bruins. When you guys dumped it into the corners, you knew something was going to happen. It was fun to watch.
And you dumped it in that corner. And,
ooh, boy!
And I remember in the playoffs, Robinson was turning. Well, I said, well, don't dump it in his corner. Dump it in the other corner and keep on going.
I would feel so
sorry. But I remember him turning. He was like, he knew it was going to go in his corner, and he was going to get a head start on it. Turn to pick it up. And I said, and they come over to me, and I said, don't dump it in his corner. Then dump it in your own corner and keep on going. So, it was something to watch.
So, Dad, some of the teams now that are out of the playoffs, we won't mention who they are, but they're starting to play a lot better.
When I used to coach, I used to say, don't pay any attention, and general managers, don't pay any attention to guys when they're out of the playoffs if they start playing well. And that's what happens in the National Hockey League. They pick up guys that, get 20 goals, 23 goals, 23 goals like that. But they get them all when they're out of the playoffs. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean a thing. And the regular season doesn't mean a thing. Just do something in the playoffs. That's all you remember.
Okay, Dad, last week we talked about how the Players Association got started, and can you tell us about it? Because you were right there in the mix.
I was right in the mix, and right when it would happen. And Bill White, I remember Bill White and Dale Ruff were the guys that started the whole thing.
And Brian Kilray.
Well, Brian Kilray, what happened with Brian is they went to Brian and they said, "You're our captain. You have to go in
And also, wasn't he one of Shore's? This was in Springfield. He was one of Shore's favorite players.
He was favorite guy. He was a captain, and he hesitated for a minute because he was a darling. He couldn't do anything wrong. He skated just like Shore wanted.
Yeah, it's amazing that the Players Association started in the American Hockey League, not the National Hockey League.
And it did start. And I was on the elevator. Believe it or not, this is hard to believe. I didn't know Al Eagleson, but I knew pictures of him, and I didn't know Bobby Orr. And they were on the elevator going down over to see Shore. And like at the same time.
So we got a clip of Bill White. He came on the Grapevine show.
Yeah,
and you asked him about it.
I did. Okay, let's hear it right now.
What was your salary?
In Springfield, the last year or the first year?
Doesn't matter. Tell us the first and last.
I came to Shore at $6,000 and finished at $8,900.
I went there at 45, and 3 years later, I was still earning 45. The best is yet to come. The fifth year, he sent me to Three Rivers, Quebec, and I was earning 38. Lots of fun. Now, look, you guys got suspended.
Right.
What the heck happened there?
Well, he was getting kind of funny. He was on Larry Johnson. Remember Larry?
Yeah, great guy.
He was on Larry prior to 2 weeks, and then we'd played St. Mike or Quebec, beat them 7-1 the night before, and called us into his office, and he said myself and Kilray and Dale Rolfe were suspended for a different play.
7-1.
7-1, right. So we went over to Jack Butterfield, who was sort of like the semi-president of the league then.
He worked in the same building as Shore, and he did the ice.
That's right. Yeah.
The president of the league, now listen what I tell you, did the ice for Shore. So you had a fan chance.
So we asked Jack, where does it say in the Constitution that it can be suspended for a different play? And he couldn't find it. So with that, things weren't getting any better between us and Eddie, and we decided to go on strike. And that's when Mr. Eagleson and his partner Watson come down.
I think I think Bobby Orr come in.
Yeah, Bobby come down for a visit. Yeah.
Do you remember the team that went right down to right just before the game? Right, you were going on strike.
Sure.
The crowd was there.
Sure.
The team was skating around in the warm up. Do you remember what team it was?
At that time?
Yeah. Rochester Americans, and I'm playing for it. We're skating around. Hey, we're going to work up a little thirst here, and we'll have a few pops, and all of a sudden, you guys come roaring out of the. And he quit. Eh? That's the time he quit.
Who's that, Eddie?
Yeah.
Oh, he was prepared to go the way to lose everything.
Yeah.
But Jack Butterfield, they had investments there. They
finally talked to him.
Yeah, talked to him.
Montreal Canadiens couldn't have beat you guys. You were like let out of prison. Remember that night?
That's right.
Guys come bursting. Oh no, we went like this. Hey, how'd you get to Chicago?
So was it true what you said there that the president of the league was Jack Butterfield? Actually drove the Zamboni for Eddie Shore while he was.
That's hard to believe.
While he was president.
While he was president, I wrote him. I wrote him a long letter that I only got half my money because, I only got half my money as usual. And I wrote him. Can you imagine? He said, "Hey Eddie, same office." And he did the ice and the whole thing. Jack Butterfield, and he was the president of the league. And he did the ice for Eddie Shore.
Well, that's a little bit of a conflict of interest, but what I read with that was that before Eagleson went to talk to Shore, he had a meeting with some NHL owners and threatened them with an antitrust lawsuit.
Oh boy!
And the owners pressured Eddie Shore to give up the team, and
we didn't think we were ever going to play that night.
No, you were, like you said in the clip, you thought that.
We actually thought we'd work up a little sweat and everything like that. And I remember Bobby Sr. from Kingston was the first guy out, and they opened that door. Montreal Canadiens couldn't have beat them that night. I don't know if people remember Bill White or not. He was a great big tall guy, and he was big as Dale Ruff. Two great big guys.
Yeah.
He was +7. He was the best plus and minus, and which meant a lot to me. He was +7, believe it or not, and he was the best plus minus on the whole team when they went over to Russia.
Yeah, he was the best plus minus in the Summit Series in '72.
Yeah.
And he scored 1 goal, but it was a biggie to get them going back in Game 8.
I remember him playing against him all the time. He had that low shot.
Yeah, and funny thing is, he said in the clip that the most money he made in Springfield was $8,000.
Yeah, well, I made 45.
And you made 45. And I would say in today's hockey, he'd probably be making around $9 million because
easy,
because he was good defensively, and
and that's what they're looking for now.
And he the one year he led LA in scoring, and it's just funny how timing's everything.
Tim, I'd like to talk about Travis Jordan, 35 years old from Colebrook, Nova Scotia. He was with the police force for 8.5 years. And as everybody knows out west, and they should know in the east, the other constable was Constable Brian. One was 35 years old and one was 30 years old, from Spruce Groves, Manitoba, with the Edmonton Police Force for 5.5 years. Was a paramedic before he was a police officer, and they were both shot. I don't like to criticize or anything, but shouldn't they be told there's a guy in there with a gun?
They went to a domestic call, and I remember we interviewed Pat Burns, who was 3-time Coach of the Year, and he was a detective in Quebec before he was a hockey, got into coaching.
Yeah.
And I remember, I don't know if it was on the show, or talking to him afterwards, he said the one call that the police hate going to was a domestic dispute, because he says we had no idea what they were walking into.
Yeah, and he said, you'd walk in and you'd try to restrain the guy from hitting the woman, and the woman would turn on the police. And one time he got hit over the head with a frozen turkey.
Yeah, the woman
got knocked cold.
Got knocked out cold. So yeah.
Anyhow, it's. I'd just like to say God love them, to both of them, to Travis Jordan, Constable Travis Jordan, 35 years from Colebrook, Nova Scotia. He's with the police force 8.5 years. And also Brent Ryan from Spruce Groves, Manitoba, with the Edmonton Police Force for 5.5 years. He was a paramedic before he was a police officer.